Everyone, it's Roger and James here from the DisKingdom Podcast. In this episode, we're going to be talking all about Star Wars The Last Jedi, both sharing our thoughts on it and kind of what we thought, and try and get the first little bit spoiler free. So if you haven't seen the movie yet, probably a good time just to make. We'll let you know what's going into spoilers, but we've both seen it, so it's a lot easier for us to kind of go into it. If one of us hadn't, then it would be very tricky. So, James, what was your initial thoughts of Star Wars The Last Jedi?
The non-spoiler thoughts are there are a lot of individual scenes in the movie that I quite liked. We'll talk about those in a spoiler, but they never connected into a full movie. Just a whole bunch of scenes that were awesome, but the movie itself is kind of like, meh.
Yeah.
Not a bad movie. Lots of controversial stuff. Lots of controversial stuff, but not a bad movie in my opinion. But also, if it didn't have that Star Wars name in front of it, I'd probably be like, hey, wait for a DVD. So
yeah, see, I gotta be honest. So, obviously, went to see it on the Thursday night. I watched it. I came out. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was very good. I totally enjoyed it. It had a big smile on my face, numerous occasions through it. Thought generally that it was really good. Was on the drive home thinking about some of the aspects to it. Was thinking really great. I was humming the music, great. Following day, I looked on the internet and I'm like, did I see a different movie to everybody else? Because I enjoyed it. Now there are aspects to it that are a bit ropey or not so good. But in all honesty, I enjoyed it, and I can't help but feel some of the problems that people have got with the movie. A lot of it was expectations not being met, whereas I don't know if I went in maybe a little bit blind because I've been trying to avoid as much as possible. And ideas about Snoke and Rey and all the rest of it were just theories, and therefore anything could happen. And I can't help but feel like because the movie took a few risks, and I enjoyed that because there was a few aspects in the movie that I wasn't expecting, and I was glad of that, and I'm glad I was spoiler free. And generally, as a whole, I enjoyed it, and it's that thing. There are some issues with it, and I think that does cause some problems for it. But as I said to the staff yesterday at work, I said, I lived through the Ewok movies. This isn't bad. I remember the prequels coming out. I don't feel The Last Jedi is anywhere near as bad as The Phantom Menace when I came back to the cinema to see that.
Oh, yeah. I don't think it's anywhere near as bad as any of those. Obviously, the internet you always have to take with a couple of grains of salt because, as we've mentioned in previous reviews, the internet is very much, it is either the greatest thing of all time or it is absolute rubbish, and everybody involved with it should be burned at the stake or whatever, and there's no middle ground, which is just plain stupid. And like you, I did really enjoy the movie. It's just so many little things that add up to me not being completely satisfied with it. I can understand the idea that people went in with like expectations. Rey is going to be. No, I can't. I'm not even going to talk about projections on what people because we're not in the spoiler section yet. But going in with expectations, not having the expectations met, I'm sure there is some of that out there on the internet. But I also think that that's a little too easy of an answer, too easy of oh no, they're just annoyed fanboys because it didn't turn out that Snoke was actually Captain Picard in disguise or something like that. There's some of it, but at the same time, it doesn't address the fact that there are problems.
Yeah, and I do wonder as well if those issues are bringing down the idea of what the movie didn't quite. It's like, it was a really great movie, but then these aspects are then dragging down, I really didn't like that, so therefore it changes the thing of you didn't come out going, oh my god, everything was amazing and it's all smell of roses. But there is that thing, and for me there was a lot of great aspects. So a couple of the cool things that I really liked, and I think from this point on we're going to have to go spoilers because it's getting a little difficult.
So we're gonna give people
So the thing
5 seconds.
Yeah.
5 seconds to turn off the podcast
hit that subscribe
if you don't
button.
want to spoil it. Yeah. All right, go ahead.
So
spoilers from here.
Things I loved. I thought the epic battle with Rey and Kylo Ren teaming up against the guards. I actually liked that whole scene. I was completely shocked because I hadn't expected Snoke to smoke it. Wasn't expecting that to happen at that point. And was kind of surprised when it did. But I'm actually okay with that because as well as lots of questions about Snoke that I'd love to have had answered, to me that was all about pushing Kylo Ren to the top of the pecking order. He is the bad guy now. He is the main one. And I don't have a problem with that. I love that scene. I love everything that they did on the island. I thought was great. Everything involving Luke Skywalker, I really enjoyed that. Yoda, I had such a big grin on my face when Yoda hit in, and I thought that was really great. And the little jokes, things like R2-D2 showing the little sign and stuff, and him going, "Oh, that's a bit cheap." I like that. I like the comedy side of it, and with the caretakers and the porgs. The fact of them giving the Puss in Boots eyes to Chewbacca. I liked all that. I was like, this is fun. I enjoyed all this thing. So that, there were some aspects to it. There was some things I didn't like. I didn't like the fact that I was expecting Admiral Hodo, or whatever her name is. I was expecting her to be to work for the Empire, and that's why she wasn't telling Poe what she was doing. But I love that ending when she did actually kick ass, sacrifice herself, and do probably one of the coolest things I've ever seen in Star Wars, where it's like, if you'd only told him what you were doing, you probably wouldn't have had all this thing. So, and we'll
come back to that.
Yeah. See, I was in that zone of like, no, Poe's in the right, you're wrong. It's like, you should, it's like, it was a thing of, I know they were trying to show Poe as coming to grips with becoming a leader kind of thing. And I thought his progression in the movie was a lot better than the last one. So I liked all of that. The only thing I really was a little bit iffy on was the whole stuff taking place in the casino. It just felt like it wasn't needed. And bringing DJ in, that just felt a bit unnecessary. And finally, Captain Phasma once again being completely wasted. But other than that, that's kind of the cliff notes of my issues with it.
So a lot of the things that you liked, I liked as well. Actually, I don't think I disagree with pretty much anything about liking the individual scenes. The one with Holdo and the light speed jump or the hyperspace jump was one of the most visually awesome sights in all of the Star Wars movies so far, and I love that they cut the sound out, and you get that 10 seconds of just watching Star Destroyers get just shaved in half by this. Now, that does raise a lot of questions about why this isn't a common strategy. Obviously not using, fully populated ships, but why don't they have the equivalent of fire ships like the English used in the Spanish Armada battle way back in the day?
I had that vision. See, for me, it was more about the fact that she ran out of fuel halfway, and that's why she came out of Lightspeed right in the middle of it. That's why. Possibly. That was my take on it. Was that the reason it worked was because basically she ran out of fuel, and that's why she came out of Lightspeed right in the middle of it, and that's why it broke it up. That was my theory on it anyway.
Yeah, but of course a good commander would still be able to be like, okay, well, I only need to fill up my tanks about this much to get the ship to there, and then I've taken out so I am hardly the person to talk to about strategy and tactics and stuff, and even I'm going, I could totally build a fleet of ships around just this entire idea. My single massive ship with just a hyperdrive would just destroy anything. Of course, I'd lose the ship, but my ship cost me pennies compared to what it cost.
I suppose as well of the whole thing of what Japan with the kamikaze pilots. That's what they did. But
that's the idea. But this is my point. For each of those scenes, for almost every single one of those scenes where you're like, this is an awesome idea, like Kylo Ren and Rey teaming up in the throne room, or what have you. There's a flip side to it where I'm like, all right, I've got problems with the way they did this. Like you mentioned, Snoke, fundamentally, I don't care that he's dead. I think it's a very important step in Kylo Ren's journey, like you mentioned, because this is the progression from the apprentice to the master, and Kylo Ren is now the big bad for Episode 9, presumably.
Yeah.
No problem with that whatsoever. On the other hand, the fact that they killed Snoke after building him up and he does basically nothing.
Yeah.
Is like, okay, so what was all the build-up for? It's a complete waste of time. Same with Phasma. This is the second movie running where we've had a big build-up to Phasma, and then it's like, oh.
I forgot she was in it.
I know. It's like, yeah, good job, guys. You have Phasma completely wasted, killing Admiral Akbar off.
On a side note.
As a side note, it's just like, oh yeah, Admiral Akbar's in. Like, wait, what? A major Return of the Jedi character. He had a brief scene in Force Awakens, like, and he killed him off screen. Now, fundamentally or functionally, I know why they did it. They needed Admiral Holdo there because you needed to have someone who Poe wasn't going to trust to force him to come up with his stupid plan, and you can't do that with Akbar. Also, you don't necessarily want to do a hyperspace kamikaze attack with someone named Akbar. That's probably not going to be a good idea. But like, he deserved better. And I feel like to a certain degree, the writers in this were kind of like, oh, hey, look at that Game of Thrones thing. They just kill people off, and it's awesome. And you know, it's so emotional when you kill off characters without proper send-offs. You're like, yeah, but that takes all sorts of setup that you have not done yet in these stories. So, you know, you're killing off Akbar. You're killing off pretty much every pilot except for Poe, or at least all the ones that you've built up. You're killing off the bombers. You're killing off... It's like, you know what? I have absolutely no emotional connection to this. And then you manage to kill off Akbar functionally off screen. But you don't kill off Leia in Superman pose, which is just freaking weird.
I hated that. It was the one thing of like Leia's blown out to space, and I'm like, yes, this is a great way of going. Kylo pulled back, he didn't do it, and then suddenly she becomes, and I literally just, and you mentioned, that's what I thought. It felt like something out of Superman from 1978. It just did not feel right. I didn't like it, and at that point, sort of end of the movie going, I really wish they'd killed her off, because I know, you know, it's this hard thing of, you know, with the fact that she's gone in real life, it would have felt a little bit like that would have been a great way of just re-editing that and reshooting something. And I felt like, I think there's that thing as well of like, you know, we ended the movie with Luke gone and Leia around, and it was like we really needed it the other way around in reality but obviously Luke can come back as a ghost. It's a weird thing. Luke is that odd one, because it's like them killing him off. It's not like, oh, that's it. I don't have a problem with that. And at the end of the day, I thought he did a really good job, and I don't mind him coming back as a ghost as Rey's teacher, like Obi-Wan. I really didn't. That didn't really surprise me at all when he kind of just flopped off with the sun. I was like, and that was it. It was. I didn't have any problem with them. I think a lot of people expected Luke to be around for a lot longer.
Yeah, and I mean, I could have gone either way with that one. I don't mind that they killed off Luke. This is not Luke's trilogy. And it's very obvious that they're going for, you know, this is the Rey and Kylo story. They are the two characters. Finn, Rose, Poe, Hux, all these guys are secondary characters in the story of Rey and Kylo. I didn't actually mean to do this, but speaking of Hux, let's talk about the First Order here for a second. How is the First Order run? Because you've got, prior to the ending of this movie, Kylo is a whiny man-child. Yeah. And Hux is like one of the most incompetent officers ever. I loved that scene right at the beginning where he's giving this great, like, evil, we're going to destroy everything speech, and we're going to wipe you from the map, and Poe's just like, yes, holding for Hux? And like, all right, that's fantastic. But this is, again, one of those things where I'm talking about, I loved it in the movie, but it presents so many problems narratively, because now you've completely undercut the authority of your main bad guy, and you're like, if the First Order is this incompetent, then what does that say about our heroes that they can't beat them? Yeah. So
yeah, I suppose I think Hux has always been a bit of the thing is they've all been a bit Weasley, and I can't help but feel like when they're going onwards, in some respect, they are going to lose because they aren't very good. They are and but I felt like the whole thing about Kylo Ren just because I'm really the one thing they actually wrote. I think that annoyed me a little thing like getting rid of his helmet. Because I love that look when he's got the hood and the helmet and the voice. You know, I love that. It's almost that kind of thing. If that what makes him different. You know, when he's just standing there, he then becomes Adam Driver, and it doesn't. When he's in that big battle with Luke, I would love to have. He smashed the mask up, and it's like, well, I kind of like the mask. I kind of like that element of him that made him the big Star Wars villain.
Yeah, I actually I didn't mind the mask at all. I honestly preferred the mask, but I also agree with Snoke on that, where it's like, yeah, you look ridiculous, dude. You don't need to wear a mask. You're wearing a mask because you have a 5-year-old's impression of what a bad person look like. He's the Star Wars version of Mr. Sinister, which is just like, I am a little kid's version of what I think Darth Vader looks like. But I actually preferred the mask, honestly. Yeah. It's a better visual than Adam Driver. Especially,
it's like even toys, yeah.
Sorry, ladies, but Adam Driver shirtless was like, wait, what movie am I watching now? So
yeah, it's like, right, put your shirt on. I'm like, yeah, you can do. I really don't need to see this. But it was, I just, as a whole, I mean, I love that big battle at the end with Luke Skywalker doing the whole Force ghost thing. I actually thought that was really cool. I really did. I didn't have a problem with that at all. And it's like, because at some point it's going, well, he's got younger. I remember hearing some people have, he got younger. I didn't even notice when I was watching it, or he had the wrong lightsaber. You sometimes don't pick up all this stuff when you watch it the first time.
And this is one of the things I really like about the movie. They don't spell it out for you. Rian Johnson, or how you pronounce his name, did a lot with the movie where he leaves it up to the audience to figure it out and to put the pieces together. Now, like I said, I'm not always happy with the way those pieces are put together, but I do appreciate from a storytelling perspective being like, no, if you put the pieces together, then you get it. And then also that realization, that Poe has royally screwed up twice and killed lots of people unnecessarily. It's one of those things where I'm like, wow, that is really well put together. But at the same time, I'm like, this resulted in us being on Canto Bight for 45 minutes in a completely useless subplot. Why the heck is Poe now gone from like Black Squadron leader to, oh yeah, you can't lead because you're all hothead? Like, then why did you make him in charge of Black Squad for years? Yeah, it's like it's this thing where this movie, and I can cite multiple examples throughout of it, is structurally sound. It is extremely well put together storytelling. The hints are there, like you were talking about Luke Skywalker looking younger. He's got the blue lightsaber. He's not tracking crystal, the salt crystals. There's no like red parts behind him. By the way, the red crystal visual was really cool. I like that. But he puts all these pieces together. The cinematographer does a great job putting all these pieces together. But then the final whole of it just doesn't feel quite as well. It doesn't feel satisfying. And that's the thing that bugs me. And whether or not it's like a great movie or not, it's still a movie I'm going to be thinking about a lot because of how conflicting I feel about it and just how many different directions you can take it. We've seen the entire gamut of reactions to this. And I mean, that's obviously going to happen no matter what with a giant movie like this. Some people are going to love it, some people are hate it. But the amount of passion that people are having, like, no, this is Phantom Menace awful. Yeah. This is this is going back to A New Hope. I'm like, well, that was the complaint you guys had about The Force Awakens. But that, and I'm going to end my section of this on this last one bit, is at the end of this movie, it feels like we've gone back to right before A New Hope. We are back to Rebels, a tiny little rebel cell against the gigantic First Order. And to me, this is the most frustrating part, is it feels like it invalidates Return of the Jedi. Because what was all that for if just 40 years later you're back to the exact same position you were in the first place? Just it's now Rey and Finn and Poe and Rose instead of Luke and Leia and Lando and Han and all that. And at least Chewie's still there and R2's still there. But
I mean, they're the kind of characters that you can just evergreen. You can leave them around for a while.
But it definitely feels like to me Disney was thinking, you know what we really love? We really love an underdog story. Yeah. Because every movie that they've done so far has been an underdog story. And that kind of frustrates me because I want them to do a story where the Republic and the First Order are on equal footing. Because I think that we've tapped the whole Rebel stuff. And if you want to keep telling Rebel stuff, then keep doing movies like Rogue One and Han Solo set in that era.
This was a bit strong there with us.
Or not, I guess.
Yeah, it's that kind of thing. I feel like for Star Wars Force Awakens, so much, sorry, not in Force Awakens, but Last Jedi, there was so much kind of coming into this, so much expectations, and I think it really depends on where you come into it. I really enjoyed it. The whole thing for this movie was setting up the next movie, setting up what we see from these characters, setting up Rey as the main hero. Kylo Ren is now the main bad guy. We're going to have, obviously, Ghost Obi-Wan. I love the fact they threw away the parent thing, because I don't believe that for 1 second. And if it is the truth, it doesn't bother me, because Anakin was from nowhere. Luke was essentially, there's that kind of thing of... And also they were setting up something new with a kid at the end and stuff. It's all about setting up... And, this guy's got another trilogy doing that's not about the Skywalkers. Maybe it's about new Jedi and so on. I'm really quite happy with this. We're 2 years from Episode 9. A lot of the buzz right now is a lot of, it took like $450 million over the weekend. It's already massive. I think there's a lot of people just kind of, it didn't quite meet what they want. In some ways, it's that weird thing. If they go in the direction everyone wants, they're too predictable. They take too many risks, and no, I don't like that. And I remember seeing this tweet yesterday. Could you imagine what the internet would have been like after Empire Strikes Back?
It would have been awful.
Yeah. So on that note, it's that kind of thing. If I really enjoyed it, there are a few issues of it, but on a whole, see it. It's not dreadful. It's not bad. There is this massive swing, and I think the problems that are with it are people that are really big Star Wars fans notice it. But if you weren't a big Star Wars fan and you're just enjoying the movie, you probably would just take it all in and not even worry about it. And I think that's kind of the main thing to take away from this. But we'd love to know what you guys think at home. Comment below, and get in touch with us on all the different social medias. You can find us over at DisKingdom.com. I'm James. Where can they find you?
Find me heroiclegacy.com.
And on that note, guys, thank you very much for watching. May the Force be with you.
And also with you.